Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunjali Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunjali Jai Gopi Jana Balaba Jai Giri Varadha Jai Gopi Jana Balaba Giri Varadha Yashodanandana Braja Janaram Yashodanandana Braja Jamuna Tira Jamuna Tira Magyānatimirandasya kinanjanāshalakaya चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नाम श्रेष्ठं मनुमापि सच्चिपुत्रम् अत्र रूपं तस्याग्रचमरोपुरीं मातरिं वष्टावतीम् राधा कुन्दं गिरिवरं महो राधिकमधावसं प्राप्तो यस्य प्रथितकृपया श्रीगुरुं तं नतस्मै। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां प्रवादेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। निखिलाश्रुतिमौलिरत्नमालदिते निराजिता पदपन्वजन्त आजिमुक्तकुलैर्पश्यामनं परितस्त्वं हरिणां संश्रयामि। अनार्पितचिरिं चिरत्करुणयावतीर्णा खलु समार्पयितुमुन्नतोज्ज्वलराशं स्वभक्तिश्रियम् हरिपुरतः सुन्दरद्युतिकदम्बसन्दीपितः सदा हृदये खन्दरे स्फुरतो वासचिनन्दनः। अजानुलम्बिता भुजो कनकावदातो कीर्तनायकपितरो कमलाय तक्षो विश्वम्भरो द्वियावरो जगद्धार्मपालो वन्दे जगत्प्रियकरो करुणावतारो। लादिने शक्तिस्वरूपाय गौरङ्गशोभिताय च भक्तशक्तिप्रदनाय गदाधर नमोऽस्तुते। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपीकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। राधे वृन्दावनाधीशे करुणामृतवाहिनी कृपया निजपादब्ज दर्शन्मह्यं प्रदीयताम्। भक्त्या विहीनाय अपराधलक्षाय क्षिप्तशाकमादितरङ्गमाध्ये कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्नं वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। श्री सच्चिदानंद गौर हरि की जय, श्री श्री गौर नित्यानंद की जय, श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्री मायापुर धाम की जय, गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंद। So, welcome to all. Pranam. Thanks so much for your presence and your time. Krishna says in the Gita, Kalosh me, so he is time personified. So if you are giving me this Harikatha, your time, it's basically giving Krishna to others, if you want to put it like that. That's a very generous sharing and a valuable one. So let's try to honor time properly, basically. That's what we are trying to do in these gatherings. We're investing our time, so let's try to honor time, knowing that this particular manifestation of Bhagavan trying to make us aware that time is passing and that something has to be done with time. And there's this famous verse in the Bhagavatam, Ajurharati Bhai Punsham Udyanastan Chayanaso Tasyarthik Shatshano Nitrautam Ashloka Bhartaya, which basically says, with every rising and setting of the sun, there is one message given to us, and it's that your life is being taken away. Unless you are spending your time, Uttama Shloka Bhartaya, in praising, singing the glories of He who is worthy of all praise, Uttama Shloka. No? So if we are investing our time in the way we are trying to do it here, then for that person, that time is not passing. Sometimes the example is given of the four Kumars, which they remain eternally young boys. Sometimes the explanation is because they are so much immersed in Harikatha from time immemorial that they don't get old. So if you're having some present problems with age or something, you know what's the formula already. We are not in the Kumar Sampradaya, but we can follow them in some way or another by trying to invest our time in the best possible way. And again, seeing time, seeing the passing of time, as Krishna himself come into our lives in so many unique times. Not only the passing of time, but again, how we invest, how we pass our time, and not only the mere passing of time. So yeah, let's give time to each other. Let's give Krishna to each other. That's another variety of sangha and of prachar. Prachar, sometimes we may be thinking of prachar means just speaking about Krishna to someone who doesn't know about Krishna. But ultimately, prachar is giving Krishna to each other permanently. No, it's not that I already have enough dose of Krishna in this life. I don't need more Krishna. So you can give Krishna to others. Everyone is thirsty for that. The more we get to know about Krishna, the more thirsty we should become. That's kind of the formula. We may be sharing about Krishna to those who do not know about Krishna, those who may not be consciously thirsty for Krishna, although they are thirsty, but unconscious without knowing. But once we get to know about Krishna, once we get to know about the all attractive, ideally our thirst should grow exponentially. It's not that, oh, now that I know about Krishna, I no longer care for Krishna. Technically speaking, that cannot happen. The more we know about Krishna, the more thirsty we should become. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatam Yadi Kutopi Lavyate, says Rupa Goswami. Tatra Laulam Api Kalam Mulyam Janmakoti Sukrita. So the price to pay, I mean, whenever Krishna consciousness is available, as Srila Prabhupada will translate this verse, no matter where that is coming from, you have to be ready to pay a price for that. You have to be greedy, basically. That's the word used there, lolyam, which is the adhikar for treading the path that Mahaprabhu gave to us. So here we are trying to increase our greed, our awareness, so to say, of how we pass our time, how we give Krishna to each other, how thirsty we are. So today the idea is to increase our thirst with a particular topic, or to hopefully quench our thirst. But that's the nature of bhakti. Whatever quenches our thirst increases the thirst eventually. What we can do about it. That's the nature of love. Love gives full satisfaction and creates its own need. Because when you taste love, there's always way more love to taste. So the prospect is unlimited. So that's the paradox of love. There's this famous, beautiful section in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where Sri Narad Muni is asking Krishna a very interesting blessing. He's asking Krishna, please, let nobody be ever satisfied with divine love. Give me that blessing. Interesting, right? Because generally, again, we will be talking today about prayer, right? Sometimes we will think, okay, to pray to Krishna means to go to him with some petition or some request or some need or some. Okay, Narad Muni's is very unique prayer. Please, Bhagavan, do not allow anyone to feel ever satiated with your love. Please give me that blessing and give them that blessing. No. So the very request may sound strange, but maybe we may be even more surprised by how Krishna replies to that request by Narad. Krishna says, but what are you talking about, Narad? He says. Basically, he's saying, that's already a fact. That's already happening. He tells Narad, watch this devotee and that devotee, and he starts to enumerate all of them. Who of them are fully satisfied? Where you find that someone who reaches divine love is totally satiated. So what's this blessing you're asking for? That has been already fulfilled before you ask the blessing. So request another, more realistic blessing, please. So that's the nature. That's the nature of love. As we were talking the other day with Lokaram Prabhu in the rickshaw, the nature of divine dissatisfaction. It creates satisfaction, fulfillment, but it creates some dissatisfaction of, I need more of this, and this can expand forever. That's one of the very symptoms of love in its highest developments. Rupa Goswami will describe it as anurag. And in anurag, Shri Radha and Krishna have been together, united in their lila. And after they got separated for, 15 seconds, let's say, Shri Radha starts to tell Lalita, she starts to look at Krishna at the distance. Who is that beautiful boy with the like dark cloud? I never seen him. Who is? Tell me more about him. And Lalita is like, you have been with him in the 15 seconds ago. She's like, no, it's not possible. It cannot be the same Krishna. And she's right. It's not the same Krishna. Krishna is more beautiful 15 seconds after. And he's so much more beautiful that at one point becomes unrecognizable. Imagine how that works. Imagine being with someone that is already beautiful, but its beauty, her beauty is like growing at every nanosecond. I'm not growing like 1 millimeter that I cannot recognize the difference, but after a few seconds, like, who are you? Totally transformed. And the same from Krishna to Radha. Krishna will ask Subal, who is that girl? And Subal is like, come on, you don't know who she is? No. Sincerely, he's not making a performance. So that's the nature of love. Love makes everything evolve and expand without limit. We are trying to enter into that world, just for you to know, just so nobody, how to say, so you are already cautioned about that. So we can prepare ourselves from here, where we are now, to approach that ideal in a realistic way. As we talked also some days ago, how to be realistic in relation to our highest ideals. We have such a high ideal, such a beautiful eternal prospect, but the point is, am I approaching that goal in a realistic way? Am I actually walking in that direction? And if I am, I'm walking at the proper pace. I'm going too fast. I'm going too slow. Not to get neurotic about it, but just to keep a healthy dose of introspection, and discernment and questioning. And so we can really walk in that direction. So in that connection today, we want to share a few words about prayer, which I personally is a topic that I consider very important, a favorite topic of mine. I again dedicated the whole chapter of my last book, Radical Personalism, to prayer, because I felt this needs its own chapter. I mean, this needs its own book and its own series of volumes, but let's begin with the chapter at least. So today we'll be talking about prayer, and specifically how to, we will share a few ideas. I don't have any very much organized sequence of topics. Let's see what comes. But to talk about prayer not only as a practice, but also as a state of being. How can we become prayer? I like to make this play of words that I can only do it in English. So when I'm doing Spanish classes, I cannot do this. So I will take my opportunity here now. So someone who, as I mentioned in my book, although someone who writes becomes a writer. Someone who cleans becomes a cleaner. Someone who plays becomes a player. And someone who prays becomes a prayer. That's the idea. Again, I cannot do that play of words in Spanish. So sorry, Spanish-speaking audience. We will find some way of expressing the same idea. But once that idea came, wow, someone who prayer, okay. That speaks about the very essence of prayer. Prayer is not something that I do and it always remains separate from me. There is me and there is prayer. There is me and there is prayer. It may begin as such, but at one point, I became prayer. As in the beginning, we may practice bhakti, but still we have this dichotomy of, like I say sometimes, my spiritual life, my material life. Okay, you want to create that dichotomy, your choice, your problem. Ideally, there's no need to keep those two ideas separate. Ideally, everything can be part of my spiritual life. I don't need to think in terms of spiritual and material life. Or even bhakti, I don't need to think in terms of my spiritual practice and my life and the rest of my life. Again, in the beginning, we may have these two categories. Okay, I have my spiritual practice and then I have whatever else is there. But gradually, my spiritual life becomes my life. That's why we call it spiritual life. We can say spiritual practice, but spiritual practice has the potential of becoming spiritual life. So one point is my life. It's not that I have a practice and I have a separate thing, a life that goes in another direction, but the two of them have kind of sayuja, submerging, when there's no longer a difference. No? My life is my practice is my life. My sadhana is my lifestyle. I cannot anymore see the difference between them. So the same with prayer. At the beginning, it's okay, I'm praying. Okay, now this is my accorded period of the day to do prayer. So I put my clock and my alarm and I try to pray, whatever. Ring, okay, end of the prayer. Okay, I continue with my life. But the idea is prayer should be an ongoing state. In a similar way that when we are worshiping Sri Archamurti, the deity on the altar, what's the Bhagavatam says what? The Bhagavatam says, Ekanishta Bhagavat, a neophyte devotee will perceive the presence of God in the altar. Or sometimes I say it, in their altar. If they're a little bit more advanced, Kanishta Madhyam, Kanishta Nut, okay, in other altars also, I can accept that Krishna may be in another altar apart from mine. But still they cannot see how the deity is actually in many other places apart from the altar. Still, we begin with an hyper-localized notion of God. God is here, which in one sense is, okay, we have to begin somewhere. Learn to see God in one place, but be careful and then don't get stuck there. And when you take your sight out of the altar, you forget that God is everywhere. So my point is, the same way when we are engaging, the real fruit of Archana is that not that you over-localize your deity more and more only in your altar, but you are able to extend the presence of your deity everywhere. Other altars, other hearts, other people, every atom, ultimately. That's the vision of the highest devotee. Krishna is everywhere. Everything is in Krishna. Krishna is in everything. But it begins in one point. And the proper practice of that, wow, the altar became, everything is in the altar. In the same way we begin praying, everything becomes prayer eventually. Sorry if it sounds a little bit abstract or poetic or romantic, what I'm saying. But Bhakti is poetic and romantic, what to do. So I'm trying to connect how a practice begins, but also how it should develop and unfold. We begin in one altar, and then the presence of the deity became universalized, where Krishna is not at one point. It will be difficult to not see Krishna. So in a similar way, at one point it will be difficult not to pray, because we enter so much into that mood, into that state. That is, again, it's a state of consciousness. It's not so much something I do. It begins as something I do, but it matures as a lifestyle, a permanent flow, so to say, in a certain mood. So, again, someone who prays becomes a prayer. And that's the potential of praying. And praying is one of the many main aspects of bhakti that Srimad Bhagavatam is describing. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam. That's in Sakyamat Manivedam. So Vandanam means two things. Vandanam means, but the two are connected. Vandanam means offering obeisances, prostration, and Vandanam means praying. which basically speaks about the two. If I'm prostrating, ideally it should be in a prayerful way. It's not just a physical exercise. That was a big challenge when we did the Gordon Parikram, because if you do it once in a day, okay, that's my daily prostration, so I'll try to pray. But if you do, like, we made the number, approximately we're doing, I don't know how many, few thousand per day. So that implies a few thousand prayers per day, no? So that's more challenging. But that's ideal spirit, not just a body aerobic lying on the floor, but prayer as well. And when we are praying, even if our body is not on the floor, ideally internally we are prostrating ourselves, offering ourselves in service. So today, again, the idea is to speak about prayer. I put it prayer in motion. Prayer in motion, like how prayer can express itself even beyond the limits of the official prescribed time per day for praying. How we can express bhakti through every thought, feeling, and action, because that's the potential of bhakti. Bhakti is so user-friendly, more than any other path, basically. If you analyze karma, gyan, that's complicated. You analyze karma kanda. If you go to the Vedas and how they prescribe how to perform all these yajnas, karma kanda, that's very complicated. On the intonation, as you know, if you fail any particular syllable, the result of the yajna is the opposite. Everything goes to hell, and you have an asura instead of a great, whatever. So many things can happen. The Shastra is showing, like, trying to discourage us from all that complication. And gyan, that's pretty harsh also. The Jnana Sankaracharya prescribed, he will say, if you want to attain moksha, to begin with, you have to be a sannyas. That's his standard. If you are not sannyas, you cannot attain moksha. So it begins like preliminary talk about the topic. Are you a sannyasi already? Something like that, which is not precisely all-inclusive, let's say, right? Now, if you count with the fingers of your hand how many sannyasis there are not doing the thing properly, so it's complicated. So gyan, karma, they're complex. But bhakti, by comparison, susukam kartum, Krishna says in the Gita, it's easy. I mean, with this I'm not saying, because all of you will be, Maharaj, I have my struggles, okay? So I don't want to sound like, okay, bhakti is completely, you have to do basically nothing. I'm not saying that. But by comparison, it's very easy. And plus, we are very complicated ourselves. So sometimes what is relatively easy becomes complicated, but in part because our own complications. Sometimes it's difficult for us to, like this saying once I heard, it says, being happy is simple, but being simple is very difficult. And that's why we may not be so happy. We love to complicate things. So the bhakti is so very simple, so simple that sometimes we may like, it's difficult to understand that. It's too simple. Anyhow, we are in the process of decomplicating our system. But the point is that bhakti is very generous, and bhakti is very engaging, and bhakti is very inviting to engage each of our functions: body, mind, words, thoughts, feelings, emotions. All of them can be offered to Bhagavan. Every one of our functions is there to attach. That's interesting how the Rupa Goswami presents it. Atasi Krishna Namadi Nababedgraham Indriyesh Bon Mukhi Jivado Swayameva Spuratida. First, he said, through all the senses and all these functions, you cannot contact Krishna, his name, his form. You're like, okay. And then he says, but when you use all those same functions in seva unmukhe, then you can have an experience of Krishna. So that's interesting, because he says, with the senses you cannot experience Krishna, and then his second part is, with the senses you can experience Krishna. What's the difference between first part and second part? And the second part, your senses are dedicated in seva, trying to be offered for the pleasure of the master of the senses. Krishikena, Rishikesh, Shivanam Bhakti Ruchite. So bhakti is very, as I was talking with Srivatsa Goswami in Vrindavan a few months ago, I like how he said, bhakti is very carnal. he said. Carnal is the word? Yeah, in the sense of it involves all our body and functions. It's not something like just it's intellectual and very exoteric and ethereal. It's very down to earth. You can be in wherever you are, and all your functions can be, each pore of your body can be, how to say, blessed by Bhakti samskars. You can pour Bhakti samskars in all the pores of your sadhaka deha. So in that sense, Bhakti is very user friendly, and throughout Shastra we find many of these descriptions about this triad that sometimes I mentioned, triad of body, mind, words. Tanu ban mano vir aham tavashmi. This is a famous line. Tanu bak mano, no, my body, my words, my mind, aham tavashmi, which means I am totally yours in body, mind, and words. Now, this three-level expression is generally used when Vritra Surya is praying similarly. Ham haritava padaikamulam, and so on. He's speaking about Krishna, thinking about Krishna, serving Krishna with this body. Krit Bhadva Purbid Vidadan Namaste Jiveta Mukti Padesaya. Brahma is praying the same way, praying with worshiping Krishna with heart, body, and words similar. And sometimes, as I say, we are a little bit out of sync with these three. Sometimes we have mind thinking something, and whatever we are thinking, we are not talking about that. We say something different from what we think, and then we do something different from what we say. So now we are a little bit like dislocated. No, we think one thing, we talk another one, and we do something different. It's a triple contradiction. Krishna still loves us. He's very generous, so he's accepting us unconditionally. No, he's as I was recently in the US, and I never read that quote. And I was in the kitchen, and it was a relatively messy kitchen, so I could understand the sign. It says, "God bless this mess." No, so that's a good rhyme. Bless this mess. So that's our presentation to Bhagavan. Bless this mess. So Krishna is generous, and he blesses the mess. Despite the mess we are, despite this contradiction, mind, body, words going in three different directions instead of being properly aligned for his pleasure and service, Krishna is already, as I said many times during these lectures, he's already loving us unconditionally, which I think is a very important point as a foundation for what we are talking today, a life of prayer. Because sometimes prayer has to do with, okay, I'm approaching God to request things, because we may feel I'm lacking stuff or I'm lacking whatever. But what if before even approaching him in prayer, I realize I'm already fully loved and accepted by God, which that's mentioned in Shastra in many places. Krishna himself described himself, I don't know, in the Gita, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, I'm the best well-wishing friend of every living entity. Many verses in that light. So what if instead of approaching Krishna for asking something that I think I lack or that I think I need, which I may not need probably, first be deeply situated in this idea, I'm already being fully loved and accepted by God. And it's like, wow, that's way more deep and valuable than anything I may think I'm lacking. You follow my point? So if you begin with that preliminary foundation, I'm already receiving the gift of Bhagavan's unconditional love and acceptance. That will change my whole orientation, how I will approach him. Because if he has already given me such a gift, then the actual question is, is there anything else to ask, basically? Or the only question that remains is how to reciprocate. How can I offer myself in service? Like Prabhupada will translate the Maha Mantra, like it's a begging of Krishna, allow me to be engage in your devotional service, like reciprocate to whatever you have already given me. So that's an important point. That's the only question a servant has, technically speaking. The only question a servant has is, how can I serve you? How can I please you? Because the servant feels, I already received so much. So I'm not thinking anymore about requesting more things, because sometimes also we can become addicted to pray for mercy when mercy already came before we pray for mercy. And we still pray for more mercy. But the question is, what are you doing with the mercy? Because mercy keeps going, flowing, and you still like, give me more, give me mercy, give me more. Krishna's like, I'm sending you tons of mercy, and you keep asking me more. What are you doing with the mercy I'm sending you? It's not only about begging for mercy, but it's about knowing what to do with the mercy, how to honor mercy, how to make our heart. In Sanskrit, this is called kripa patra. Kripa patra means like a vessel. No? A vessel. So kripa patra means a mercy vessel. Like our heart has to be a proper vessel to host the mercy. Because Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj will say, if the vessel is cracked with holes, it can be filled with mercy, but after a few minutes, it's like, mercy, mercy, mercy. Then it's filled again. Mercy. Oh, give me more mercy. No? Fill the vessel. So again, once we understand Bhagavan is already giving himself to me fully, that's his willingness, his disposition, full unconditional love and acceptance, the only question is how to serve. The word kinkara, Mahaprabhu says in Sikshastakam, Ayi Nanda Tanuya Kinkaram. Kinkaram translates as servant. But it's interesting if you go to the etymology of the word, kinkara means kim kara, kim karomi. Kim means what, and kara means to do. So kinkara means what can I do? Or basically, how can I serve? And that's translated as servant. So to be a servant means a servant will have only one question in mind, which is, how can I serve you? Because the servant already knows so much had been coming, so much love I have received, I don't dare to ask for more. I mean, now I'm trying to reciprocate in kind. So for me, this is kind of the essence of what prayer is about only. Also, of course, some of us, some of you might tell me, or even myself, like, well, yes, but I'm not on that level, and still I lack realization of all these things you are talking about, and I feel the need to ask for Krishna stuff. I will say, okay, Krishna is kind enough to even accept those cases, if you want to put it like that. He says in the Gita, Artha Jignasa Artha Arti Jnani Chanavaratarshava. So if Chaturvidha Bhajantema, no, he speaks about 4 people who approach him and who start to worship him, but with different motivations. Some of them are wanting some economic development, financial prosperity. Some others are afflicted, no? Some are distressed. And some of them are distressed and they go to Krishna, give me relief from the distress, but they don't maybe requesting, give me the knowledge to change the attitude that took me to be in distress. Just give me relief of the distress. When I'm relieved, I do the same mischief again. And then anxiety comes, please relieve me of your thank you so much. So still it's a little bit exploitative, if you want to put it like that in one sense. But Krishna is generous enough to say, okay, we have to begin somewhere. So he accepts that. Like the Bhagavatam also says, akama sarvo kama ba moksha kama udharadi tibrena bhakti yogena jayata purushampana. Bhagavatam said, whether you are akama means you have no desire, sarvo kama, whether you have no desire, or you have all the desires put together, or moksha kama, or you have the only desire of moksha, whatever the case you are, tibrena bhakti yogena jayata purushampara, you go to Krishna and worship him for attaining the desires you want. Again, that doesn't mean that there's not a hierarchy of approach and depth, but the point is, even if you are in the worst possible situation, you have the most superficial approach, Krishna says, no problem, come to me with that superficiality. Like Prabhupada will say to some people, you are drinking vodka, offer that to Krishna. It doesn't mean that, again, the Bhagavatam is saying, we quoted that the other day, Krishna will say too that you can offer what is favorite for me, or you can offer what is favorite for you. Of course, there's a gradation there also. No, it's not like, okay, then from now on I will just offer to Krishna what I like. The idea, the spirit is, at least if you like something, whatever it is, probably you will eat it anyway or drink it anyway without offering it to Krishna. So at least make Krishna part of that equation on that stage. You follow my point? Some people say, I will drink my vodka anyway. So Prabhupada will say, at least offer that to Krishna. He's not establishing that as the highest form of offering. He's addressing a particular case where the person will nonetheless drink their vodka anyway. So he says, include Krishna in the equation. Make him part of your life in some way. And gradually, of course, by including him, you will get purified to the point of being more concerned about what he likes. Not so much what I like, and I include there in my offering what he likes. But again, it's a gradual process, and there are different degrees of approach. But ideally, as we were talking, of course, some people may begin their prayer journey with this idea of requesting, God, give me, God, I need, God, I lack, God, I'm suffering, relief. And Krishna, okay, he will reply, and when he replies to that also, it's important that we understand, hopefully, the fruit of that request was not that Krishna gave me what I wanted. The fruit of that request is that I develop more faith in the practice of praying to him. You follow my point? Even in the Karma Kanda, the Vedas, you have all these rituals and formulas, do it like this, like this, like that, so you obtain whatever enjoyment you want to experience. So people do all that following the Veda, and the end result is, wow, they obtained that. But the actual fruit is not what they obtained. The actual fruit is now their faith in the Vedas has increased because they feel, oh, this works. So with an increased faith in the Vedas, next time they approach the Veda with more faith, that increased faith will help them to grasp better what's the actual intent of the Veda. And gradually they will go to the ultimate purpose of the Veda, which of course, as Krishna said, Vedanta Krit Veda Vidivachaham in the Gita. I am the one to be known through the Vedas. But it's a gradual process, of course, for some. So prayer is the same. Gradually we realize, in one sense, I don't have anything to request to Krishna. I have all to give, all to offer to myself. He has gave himself so much already. Prayer has a lot to do with that, not so much about, hey, Krishna, listen to me, all the things, all my laundry list, so to say, all the things that I need, and you have to. No, it's not so much about me being the main subject, talking, he has to listen and respond accordingly to my sweet will, which is not so sweet generally. Many times prayer has a lot to do with, again, approaching Bhagavan with the willingness of being of service. Maybe sometimes even not talking too much, but listening. Just learning to listen. What do you want from me? What's your will? I'm paying attention. Silence sometimes is very important. Srila Prabhupada in one section, one purport of the Bhagavatam, I don't have the exact, let me see if I may be too much to look for the section here now. But he says something very interesting. Prabhupada says, among all the confidential activities of hearing, thinking, and meditating, silence is most important. Because those of you from Anandadham will like that. Yeah, they organize lots of silent retreats in Switzerland and Anandadham there. So I will repeat again for Trivanga and all the Anandadham crew. Prabhupada says, that's purport to Bhagavad Gita 10:38, and when Krishna famously says, among all secrets, I'm silence. Which is a very interesting statement, that, no? From all secret things, I'm silence. No? So you have to enter into silence to catch what is most secret. Sometimes if there is too much noise and volume and things, you can capture what's between the lines. And Prabhupada comments Again, among the confidential activities of hearing, thinking, and meditating, Shravanam, Smaranam, and so on, silence is most important because by silence one can make progress very quickly. So, and then in the Bhagavatam 7:15-77, I have another quote. The Bhagavatam says that Krishna is he who is worshipped by silence. And of course, with this, I'm not telling you stop speaking forever, nothing like that. Just like understanding the context of what we are talking now here. Even when we are chanting Mahamantra, we are chanting Japa, for example. It's not so much about us chanting. No, it's not that I'm the main protagonist of the event. No, it's Srinam hopefully descending and dancing on my tongue, and me chanting and hearing what's coming and listening, paying attention. Again, silence doesn't mean that I'm not chanting. Silence also means I'm listening attentively. Silence is not so much stop speaking, don't talk, silence. Silence means listen, pay attention. There are many sections in Shastra emphasizing the importance of paying attention. Because if we don't pay attention, we will miss so many things that are already coming there, sounding there. So in that sense, we can approach prayer. Prayer, again, when I say prayer, that can mean chanting Srinam in a prayerful spirit, can be moments of prayer that we just sit in silence. So we present some prayers. Again, we can recite prayers composed by our acharyas. We can compose our own prayers. So many ways we can do that. But ultimately, again, our Gaudiya standard, if you want to put it like that, is more so much, it's not so much of a requesting, but presenting ourselves in front of God. And of course, He's everywhere. But in one sense, we need to enter into some sacred space and time. And okay, here I am presenting myself in front of you and trying to be willing to hear and wishing to be of service. How can I serve? In one sense, even we could say, you don't even need to ask for mercy because mercy is already being given. It's not like, because sometimes in our give me mercy, Krishna, give me mercy, indirectly you are telling you are not giving me mercy. In some cases, I'm not saying always, but sometimes we may be thinking, please give me mercy, please, like if he's not already giving you. Again, the actual question is, what are you doing with mercy? Or I sometimes say a little bit jokingly, we may have a very we may ask for mercy, but we also have a certain idea of how mercy should look like. That's conditional mercy. Like, please, Krishna, give me mercy in this, and this way. Please, this packaging, in this form, in this moment, in that mood. That will be your mercy. So we know better than him what's mercy for us. And it's funny because sometimes we beg for mercy and Krishna sends actual mercy. What we need is mercy, but we sometimes are not able to recognize it as such, and we will start to pray him for mercy. So he protects us from the mercy he just sent us a few minutes before. And Krishna is like, what's going on? Please send me mercy for what? Because I have this terrible situation coming. No, that was my previous mercy. That was my reply to your previous prayer. So don't make a second prayer trying to counteract the effect of your previous prayer. That's not praying. No, we don't pray once and then a second time to counteract the first one, and then the third one to counteract the second one. Krishna is like, that's a very unique style of prayer. A little exhausting, I will say. For us, and maybe for him. No, do not exhaust Krishna, please. So, instead of us, we should remain open, remain willing to capture mercy, to honor mercy. Sometimes the example has been given of the Chataka bird or the Chakora bird. There are different mythical birds, but the two of them is similar. The Chataka bird is that bird that did say that he only drinks rainwater. So this bird is only looking up And his vow, his brata, no? The Chatak brata is, I won't take anything that doesn't come from above. Even if I'm dying of thirst, I will only drink what comes from above. Like it's symbolically representing this spirit of, this is what mercy is. Don't misreading mercy and taking anything else as mercy. And the chakora is similar. Chakora is a bird that nourishes himself by the moon rays at night. So at night, where everything is dark, we may be in our dark night of the soul, but we have to be as a chakora. No? The moon comes there to give light and to give nourishment. As the Gita says, the moonlight is giving amrit, is giving taste, is giving nectar to everything. So somehow or other, we have to, in prayer, enter into this spirit. We are willing, offering ourselves in service, but also listening and willing to capture mercy and honor it properly. If it has to come, and if it's not coming, it has already came before, so to say. No? But remember, Krishna is an ocean of mercy. So mercy is always flowing from him. Again, it's not something like, okay, there goes a dose of mercy. Now no more mercy. Now mercy again. Now more. That's not Krishna. Again, Karuna Sindhu. Karuna Sindhu means, what's an ocean? An ocean basically is a symbol for something that you cannot measure its beginning nor its end. No, it doesn't have beginning, doesn't have an end, so it's always flowing. So if Krishna is an ocean of mercy, means his mercy is always flowing, no beginning, no end. We may be able just to capture a few drops now. We may not have that much of an adhikar to capture the whole ocean. That's quite a lot. But at least we should remember, I think this sounds basic, but sometimes we may forget. We should remember Krishna is always giving mercy. His mercy is always in flow. It's not that it's just like sometimes not. Sometimes I don't capture that, but he cannot but be merciful. As we said the other day, God does not have love. God is made of love. So if you are made of something, you cannot but be that always. If you are love personified, you cannot not love, because that goes against who you are. That goes against your very constitution, your ontological position. If I'm love personified, I mean, I'm not, I'm giving just an example. I cannot go against my nature. So if God is mercy personified, because he's also that, he cannot not be merciful. So during prayer, we should be careful of not projecting this mood of give me mercy, in the sense of maybe you are not giving me mercy, you are not merciful, and so on and so forth. But how I can prepare my heart to capture that flow, that nectar. And how much do I need to correct my own misconceptions about mercy, God, how he's supposed to reply to my prayers. There may be lots of misconceptions we need to clear in our prayer attempts. Prayer may be one of the arenas where we may engage in the most embarrassing ways, in the sense that we may realize how much we still distrust God, how much attached we are to receive mercy in a certain way. But it's necessary also to go through those embarrassing chapters and to understand prayer is not so much, as I put in my book, prayer is not about changing God's mind about us, but changing our mind about God. You follow? It's not that I will try to pray so I convince Krishna of this and that, or I convince Krishna that I'm not so bad and that he should love me. He already loves you unconditionally. Again, you don't need to convince him of that. He's already doing it. It's more about changing my own mind about who he is. Because generally we go to prayer with a big bunch of misconceptions. And we need to clear all that, even in the very act of prayer. Be careful of projecting, unresolved parental issues from your childhood and thinking that's Krishna. He's an angry male that needs to be appeased quickly, because if not, you're in trouble. Those things can happen, not in every case, but that can happen. So it's important that we are willing to get rid of all possible misconceptions about who Krishna is. And don't be so sure that you're already rid of all of that. The process is so fine, so refined, so many things need to be get rid of. So many. I was talking with a devotee recently about how many subtle layers of, how do you call this? What's the expression of fear of God in Latin? Like Theo, huh? Timmy?
First person of Timmy will come.
I think there's another word. There's a term.
Yeah, Timmy is like, it means fear, but it's a sacred fear.
Yeah, no. Well, anyhow, my point is there's some, again, don't get distracted by that. No problem. Then I will. But yeah, the point is, we may think, no, I'm not afraid of Krishna anymore. I mean, he's so nice, sweet in the forest of Vrindavan. He doesn't inspire fear. Yes, you are right. But saying that is one thing, and how we enact, how we play out our beliefs and our words, that's very different sometimes. Again, we may pray, or in certain challenging situations in life, how much do I stay in that, inhabit those concepts? Because we have so many concepts as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but we have to inhabit the concepts. We have to live inside that. We have to make them flesh, basically, in Christian terminology. And again, we have to remain always willing to hear and be further transformed. Prayer is a process of constant transformation. And that's also a very beautiful prospect, but sometimes challenging. Because sometimes we don't want to change. Let's put it simply. We don't want to change. Recently, I was reading some research done, and they say that on a very good day, and this on a very good day, once in a month or something, we are willing to question like 5% of our own ideas. On a very good day, you are willing to question 5% of your ideas and thoughts and ways of doing things. Generally, it's like, I'm not changing. This is me. This is who I am. Especially when you have a whole set of spiritual absolute ideas that you say they are perfect, they are pure revelation, no need to change anything. And that's pure and perfect, but the way you are processing that may not be that perfect. You follow my point? You can have the most pure transcendental knowledge, but that doesn't warranty you are understanding that correctly. You are processing that correctly. So that can be dangerous. If you given like a book of absolute truths to someone not very mature, it's like giving a gun to a 5-year-old kid, basically. It's a potential danger. You give someone with lack of capacity a Bible, a Bhagavad Gita, they may end up creating World War or some atomic bomb, Oppenheimer quoting the Gita, and so on. So extreme examples I give. We can do smaller terrible things at the same time also with spiritual books. So anyhow, the point is prayer is all about the willingness to remain in perpetual transformation. As I say before, Krishna is becoming more beautiful at every moment. He's being transformed at every moment by the force of love. So we should be equally willing to that. If not, we should stop talking about, I want to serve Krishna. I want to go to the spiritual world. Really? You have to play out the implications of going there. And sometimes, and I'm not criticizing, not pointing to anyone here, but sometimes when we play out which are the actual implications of what's going on in the spiritual world, some of us may be horrified. Because that requires such a degree of sacrifice, of dedication, of responsibility, of self-forgetfulness, that at present we may not be ready for that. And it's okay, we can be honest about it, but it's important that we don't cheat ourselves thinking, yeah, Manjari Bhav, I want that, and yeah, I'm going, yeah, I'm so nice, the gopis. But when you analyze what's their disposition, their psychology, the willingness to give themselves without any thought at every moment, we're like, whoa, I need a break. I need a weakening whoa or something. This is too much. Well, they're not thinking like that there. They are like increasing their capacity to give themselves. No? So this, again, not to discourage anyone, just to be realistic and be open to continue growing. There is a very nice word that I like in Sanskrit, which speaks a lot about this, which is tadatmya. You may have heard the word tadatmya. So tadatmya means, difficult to translate in one single word, but I would like to describe it as mystical empathy. Like you identify so much with the other person that in one sense you forget about yourself and you're completely identifying, serving and loving the other person. And this is a principle that can happen between two people, between one and Guru, between Krishna and Radha, between Mahaprabhu himself is Krishna being empathic with what's going on in Radha's heart to the point of entering there. But tadatmya has to do with this idea of sacrifice. I'm identifying so much with what's going on in your heart that I'm sacrificing my own separate heart for the sake of entering into your heart. And I'm taking responsibility for what's going on in your heart and dedicating myself totally self-forgetful in divine love for what's going on in your heart. So that's what's going on in the spiritual world, basically, just in case. So you don't say that nobody told me about that. That's what's actually going on. Full responsibility, full sacrifice, full dedication, full self-forgetfulness in divine love. And that's beautiful, as scary as that may be in our present stage. So sadhana bhakti means gradually getting closer to that and bridging the gap in a sustainable way, because of course if we just want to jump to an ocean of self-forgetfulness and sacrifice, we may drown there. We may not be ready for that. But also we shouldn't cancel that because there's such an important ideal. So the question is, on what degree can I express those same values: sacrifice, responsibility, dedication, self-forgetfulness, mystical empathy, tadatmya, now, here, where I am? And prayer is about that. It's about trying to identify with the needs of the beloved, trying to put our personal agenda on the side, being willing to change, being willing to be transformed, and asking, Kinkara, what can I do? How can I serve? And the answer will never be the same. I'll try to understand this. If you go to Sri Guru or to Krishna, how can I serve today? It's not the same answer on how could I serve yesterday or tomorrow. Every day, not only every day. It's not that you are in Golok Vrindavan and you go in the morning, Kinkara, how can I serve today? Oh, this is your day, your list of daily duties. For more, see you tomorrow. No, no. Hari Bhagati Primnaso Bhava Kutilava. Love moves in a crooked way, which means it's completely unpredictable. So at every movement, unpredictable movement of love, there will be so many new service necessities, and everyone and everything will be accommodating to honor and serve that service necessity at every step in eternal life. So we should gradually prepare our heart for that, and prayer is basically about that. Daily moments, hopefully start as daily moments and gradually extend and expand throughout the day, throughout our lives, and we enter into this sacred place, sacred space of remaining willing, open for transformation, offering ourselves in service. And again, offering each of our functions in that connection. Work and prayer are not different. In the beginning, they may sound different. At one point, prayer is our work. Our work can become prayer. It's not that, oh, I'm cleaning the bathroom. This is not prayer. It can be. Everything has the potential to become prayer, even ourselves, as I said. Someone who prays becomes prayer. So anyhow, some thoughts I want to share today with you in connection to the topic of prayer. Of course, so many more things we could say. It's an unending. Each point we touch on this infinite line of Harikata is in itself unending. So we're just touching something today, hopefully being sprinkled by some realizations and inspiration. And let's spend some time if you have questions. But Trivanga Prabhu lift his hand first. So please.
Thank you, Maharaj. Very nice.
Thank you.
Satisfying.
Well, you and Ananda Dam are to blame for inspiration in prayer to all of us. That's a very powerful hub there. It's a very beautiful place in Switzerland, in the
To
Alps.
my credit, it's the others. And I was meditating a few years. I started a few years before I met the devotees. I started meditating every day, and then I met the devotees, and when I saw them doing japa, my question is about japa. I was shocked. I found it actually disgusting, and I wanted to run away. And I have seen many people that came to the temple very sincerely, and they saw this, and they never came back because they were running up and down, and Hare Krishna, Krishna, or somewhere just sitting somewhere.
Samadhi.
Yeah. These two extremes, and I'm still struggling with that. So I tried many things. I tried to not chant anymore any fixed number of rounds. I don't recommend to anybody with this was one of my experiments. Just a fixed number of time.
Time.
I would say I was spoiled in a sense because I was having this habit, finish my rounds.
Counting.
Yeah, counting, yes. And it was very counterintuitive for my prayer life. And so, yeah, honestly, I'm still struggling with this. I still find my own chanting sometimes not very prayerful, and not that it's not relishable. That it's okay. It should not be for my pleasure. But I really have doubts that this is really the best I can do to have my relationship with Krishna. So sometimes between my mantras, I stop and I start to pray in my own words, and then I continue again. Yeah, I want to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah.
How can my japa be more prayerful?
Well, thank you for sharing your testimony. Struggles, because again, that is the point. Is it's not only you. Also, that also helps each of us to say, well, we are in the same club. It seems on one level or another, and of course, it's not bad to have a struggle. Again, in all scripture, I mean, Rupa Goswami and Padashamrita here and there, they are addressing. You will have struggle when you don't have taste. This, they know that this will happen. It's not like, oh, you're struggling. Wow, I'm so surprised. Why? No, I mean, they know that will happen. It's part of the journey. Of course, not to normalize it to the extreme of saying, okay, that will be like this forever, so I don't need to change it. That's what it is. No, but to acknowledge it's part of the journey. Here, I'm not telling people what to do. Each one has to consult that with their own consciousness, guru, Vaishnav, sadhus, whatever. But I've heard a few devotees, not only you, it's not the first time I've heard about chanting, not counting the rounds, but counting the time. And I did that myself also, and that helped also. But the point is that you end up chanting the rounds you will count, because I know how much it takes me to chant one round. No, it takes 10 minutes to me approximately. So then if I want to chant 16 rounds, I will chant 160 minutes, which basically I'm chanting the same quantity of rounds, but without this.
Exactly.
No? So that creates, and again, I'm not breaking my bow or my number. I'm just approaching it from a place where the counting side is not so prominent. And which I understand why you do it, because many times we get entangled into, as I make the play of words, counting and not chanting. Because it's chanting, it's not counting. As I always say, at the end of the day, it depends on which is the state of consciousness we reach, not how many rounds we chanted. Nobody will ask us how many rounds you chanted at the end of our life. It's not like fill in how many rounds. No, Krishna says the Gita word jam jam bhapishmaram bhavam chayantyante kalivaram. So what matters is your bhava. Bhava. Bhava means, in this case, your mood, your internal state. And that will determine where you go in the next life. That's an important point, because sometimes I've seen devotees also that, I don't know, they're practicing or chanting in certain way, and their inner state, their bhava, is in a certain place, but somehow they feel, but when I die, I will be transferred to Golok Vrindavan. And I like, but if you are not already there before dying, somehow, as a state of consciousness, you won't be transferred there. Krishna is not so cruel that he will send you to a place that you don't want to go. And if you tell me, no, I want to go, but if you want to go, then in this lifetime, you will be getting closer and closer there. It's not that because of dying, there's a change of bhava, of inner mood. Dying is a change of cloth, a change of body, not a change of bhava. You follow my point? So we shouldn't expect a miracle, so to say, I'll live my life in a mediocre way, but somehow Krishna will make some magic, and he's merciful. That's an abuse of the idea of Krishna is merciful. You follow? I mean, because we could be doing something more, and we are not doing it, but we are not doing that on the plea of he's merciful. So he will do some magic at the end, and I will be thrown into Golok Vrindavan. But if you do not demonstrate in this life that you want that, Krishna again is not cruel. He won't send you to a place you don't want to go. So that on one side, of course, that's not your question, but in connection to that. And I would say, of course, there is no magical formula. I'm not here trying to, I will share with you the real thing, and this will work for every one of you in the same way, because each one of us is individual. But as you mentioned, for some it helps praying in between. I mean, chanting prayerfully, but if you feel that's lacking, sometimes you can pause and like realign with what's going on, what I'm supposed to be doing here, instead of like, it's not a gun machine, like trying to go, and maybe chanting slowly and hearing. As for some, it will help maybe chanting more mentally, or some will help more verbally. You have to test and see what works better for you. You know, there's not one single way of doing it. Of course, it doesn't mean you can do it in any way you want, but there are enough options. I've seen the devotees even help them to read the Mahamantra, to chant and see. So again, there are so many ways. No, there are many verses in Shastra which glorify the name. In Argentina, I remember in the ashram we had a, how do you call this? Like a treasure chest, throw. How do you call it? Treasure chest. And we have printed like 108 quotes from Shastra about the glories of the name. And they were all like in papers like this. So we were like, so we will have that if you were chanting. Sometimes you have the treasure chest there. So at some point, if the mind was starting like to oscillate, 1 minute. To remind yourself of what's this name, what I'm doing here. You follow. So again, you have to be creative also. One has to be creative. One has to be intuitive also to feel what's working for you, what's not working. Because you can see someone else doing something like, I don't know, I'm reading the Mahamantra, it's working, and some others, it's not working for me. And it's okay. So find a way it works. And even I would say, try also to understand that for every devotee, their main expression of bhakti will be different. So some people will find more connection with other angas of bhakti than japa. I mean, I have nothing against japa, of course, but I'm just saying, I mean, Parikshit Maharaj attained perfection. He didn't chant one round. He didn't chant one round for a whole week. He was just listening. And he attained perfection by listening. Sukadev Goswami attained perfection by speaking, by kirtan. That's how it's described. Here's the kirtanakya guru. But his kirtan was speaking the Bhagavatam. He was not doing kirtan with instruments or with japa, loud voice. He was just talking Bhagavatam. So again, with this, I'm not saying cancel your japa and find a, but I'm just saying some devotees will feel affinity to our other expressions of bhakti more. And if you feel that natural call, that's also a blessing of Krishna, so to say. Like when Rupa Goswami described these 64 angas of bhakti in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he will mention examples of people attaining perfection, but each one of those, some of them will be dancing in front of the deity in the altar. He gives this example of Chandrakanti, a lady who danced the whole night in front of the deity, and she attained perfection after that night. Again, who can do that? And that's another thing. But the point is, that's given as a reference point that that's possible. And I know those who like to dance a lot. So I encourage them, well, make that main part of your sadhana. Sometimes we may not be creative enough as to allow that to happen. No, how can I make dancing a part of my sadhana? Well, Rupa Goswami did it. He put dancing as a part of his sadhana 64 angas. You follow my point?
Yes, yes.
Which doesn't mean stop japa. It's just like something becomes more prominent. And at some stage, something may be more prominent. At some other stage, something else may be more prominent. Some thoughts. I don't know if something of that helps.
Very, very helpful.
Thank you for sharing.
Very special and very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Who else raised their hand? Yeah.
Thank you so much. As you explained that how prayer sometimes is willingness to transform. And sometimes we superficially pray to Krishna when we are becoming weak in our character or whatever, that we want to be transformed, Krishna transform us. It's just a superficial attitude. Because when Krishna sends some situation to really transform us, we kind of repel that situation. And we are like, oh, what is this? And we're repelling from Bhakti instead of going through that transformation. So how do we stop superficially wishing for transformation and really go through transformation Krishna is sending us? How do we recognize that? Like, suffering, there is transformation. How do we recognize that?
Yeah, all these how questions, which are almost like 95% of the questions I receive, how to do this, how to get that, how. I'm not condemning the questions, they are correct, but there are many of how, Maharaj, how to do that, how to, and many of the how-to questions also start to be resolved or answered by understanding what gets in the way of the how question. So I'm asking how to, whatever you feel, maybe you ask yourself, what is getting in the way of this thing I'm asking about how to do? And I cannot reply for you what gets in your way, but it's an invitation for introspection. So I'm thinking, in your case, okay, I'm praying for Krishna superficially. So why I'm praying superficially? What gets in? Do I want to be transformed? Why do I don't want to be transformed? Why I run away from Krishna's reply to my prayers? And sometimes we don't want to ask that too much because it may be painful to know the answer to it may be embarrassing. But at the same time, again, it will be, and it may be unbearable if we are too attached to a certain image of ourselves. Like we want to be nice devotees and perfect. And when you start sometimes to analyze some of your motivations, you realize, oh my God, I'm a monster. But again, at the same time, Krishna is loving me unconditionally. Again, you have to put all the things together, because if we over-identify with our anarthas, you get depressed, you get suicidal, because you may see certain things that still are lurking there, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a hopeless case, period. And we lose sight of Krishna's mercy is more powerful than all your anarthas put together. But I have to be introspective about what's getting in the way. That's what Mahaprabhu is showing in the second verse of Sikshastakam very exemplarily, when he says, Durdaiva midrishami hajjani nanurag. He appreciates all the mercy of Bhagavan. That's a good, very nice verse. I like the structure of the verse, because those are, and that's verse, the second verse of Sikshastakam represents anartha nibriti and bhajana kriya. So basically that verse is showing the spirit through which we can navigate that stage that most of us are in. So what does Mahaprabhu say? That the first 3 lines of the verse, he's showing an appreciation for the mercy of Krishna. And the last line is showing repentance for his lack of taste for that mercy. No? First 3 lines, Nam Namakari Bahuda, you have so many names, Niya Jarva Shaktis, all the Shaktis are in your names. There are no hard and fast rules to chant these names, and so on. Your mercy is such a thing, but, and then comes the introspection part. No? I don't have taste for that. So then he enters into the chamber of introspection. Why I don't have a taste for that? What's getting in the way of that? Which are the anarthas? Let's make the list. In my particular case, it may take time to enter. We may not want to enter there, but we should, in a spirit of service. I want to make that clear so I can really work on this consciously, and even if I need to pray for that, okay, make that a prayer. Once a devotee said that, it was nice. He said, do you want to have a realization of Krishna's in your life? Okay, try to detect something that is getting in your way, and then pray to Krishna to help you with that. And then be ready for the reply. And that's Krishna giving you a realization, but you have to be open for that. So again, I cannot reply to you what's getting in your way, but in general, I said most of us are terrified about changing. But life is about changing. That's the good or bad news. I don't know. Spiritual life in particular is all about change, permanent transformation. But many times, and love is about that. I mean, love, if you love someone, you are transformed by that love, by that relationship, but that you are no longer the same person that you were before being in love with that person, whether it's even here, with your wife, with your child. It's before and after. No, it's a different version. So love transforms us. The point is how willing we are to be transformed. Because if we resist change, in the context of love, it will make everything fail, so to say. And this is all about love, which means it's all about change. So again, it's a gradual process. I have no magical formula, magical pill for us to swallow, and okay, that's it. But it invites us, as we were talking the other day, we may fail a lot. We should probably, we need to fail. But as we said the other day, failure is not bad. Failure can be ideally humbling. So we will have our moments of inspiring hope and our moments of humbling failure. But it's 2 sides of the same coin. I mean, it's not that one goes against the other. Inspiring hope, humbling failure. Actually, the 2 should be humbling. Inspiring hope will be humbling as well. And failure will be humbling. Each of them will invite us for a certain reflection. Someday you are filled with inspiration and enthusiasm and hope. That should also invite you to be introspective and appreciate what's going on here. What's the nature of this experience and this gift? And when you're going through humbling failure, that's also a special invitation to be introspective. What I have to learn from here? What is getting in the way of my... And if you are honest and sincere, the only result of that will be you will be increasing your longing and the intensity of your prayer. I want to serve you. I want to give myself. I want to be allowed to change, but this is getting in the way. But I want it, but this is getting in the way. And in that churning process, you are growing in prayer. You are really getting closer to your goal. So, that's the very way we overcome those obstacles, basically. Yeah. Some thoughts, I hope that help. Hridaya Chaitanya.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I grew up in an environment where prayer was very much encouraged, like expressing things to God and expressing gratitude. And I've always been very confused about it. And to be honest, I never really solved the issue that I have with putting words on prayers, using words with God in general. not that I don't do it, but when I do it, I see it more as almost like a sacred psychological exercise, I call it, in the sense that if God is omniscient, we usually use words to inform someone about something that the person doesn't know. Right? So whenever we use words with God, in one sense, we're talking to ourselves. We're telling that's the way I view it nowadays. It's like we're telling ourselves, be open to whatever comes. But it's not that we can inform God of anything, right? We don't even, you said asking for help, but it's not exactly the way it works, right? Because God knows whatever we need. So even when we're asking something, we're kind of telling ourselves, you need that, so be open to it. And I just want to check if my vision is completely wrong, or is this,
No, it makes sense, and I agree. Because of course, if we play the omniscient card, God knows already everything. In one sense, there's nothing we need to tell him, but he doesn't need us to remind him about what he knows, but we need to remind ourselves of where we want to be, to make a statement of which is our desire, our will. I mean, the relation still that God is omniscient doesn't mean that he's deciding for us, because if not, we wouldn't have any will. No, it's like this. I don't know the name now. It's gone to my mind, but you have this like tool to measure the weather. So the tool will know in advance what weather is there, but it doesn't mean that the tool is determining which is the weather, what the weather will be like. It's just knowing about it. So in the same way that Krishna knows about us, it doesn't mean that he's determining that. So the point is that there's a part for us to play, because if not, again, what's the purpose of existing without will, there's no love, there's no voluntary choice. So yeah, those things that, as you mentioned, help me or this or that, is more like it ultimately goes back to ourselves, to remind ourselves in which spirit we should present ourselves to him.
Then the second part,
and you ultimately, voluntarily offer ourselves in service. That's something we have to do, so to say. No, again, he already loves us unconditionally, so the remaining part is we doing our part of the equation. Basically, he cannot do that for ourselves. No, that would be just like too much. No, don't pray to Krishna to please reciprocate with yourself, so I don't have to do it myself or something like that. Right? Yeah. Second part, sorry.
Yeah, the second part was if it's if this is almost like a sacred psychological exercise, so praying, like having a dialogue, but at the end of the day, it's almost a dialogue with our inner selves, and we're just trying to offer this dialogue to God in one sense.
But also it's listening to him, remember.
Yeah, but is it exactly?
And in that sense, it's a dialogue.
That's the listening part, maybe it's only silence and service, isn't it? Like would be the real prayer. If the goal of prayer is to be as much in touch as possible with God, this will happen more in complete silence, or like contemplation, as the Christians say, or service, like without words. Because again, when we use words, in one sense, we're talking to ourselves. We can't avoid this. It's like a loop, We think we inform someone. We play this role in one sense. But when we keep silent and we just whether act in service or just trying to face what reality is, as Krishna, of course, then this would be the real prayer, isn't it? I mean, not real in terms of I want to do hierarchy or anything, but my point is, whenever we talk and we express things, it's difficult to acknowledge. And I had very animated conversations with Christian people about this. But I feel it's a fact that we're somehow trying to speak to ourselves and like remind us where we want to go and how we want to go. And but then the best way to reach out and be in touch with God, in one sense, would be to completely turn off all the lights and words and everything in us, and just be willing to hear something if there's something to hear. That doesn't sound very practical the way I say it. I mean,
I wouldn't say there is only one way to do that. I wouldn't say this is the highest. I mean, we have, as we know, there are different ways, because we are also using the expression serving God. But also so many ways that can happen. We have so many great saints who are serving Krishna in their inner internal bodies, and external they're just sitting in the same place for the whole day, and it seems like they are not doing any service. And probably those saints that are living in a hole in a cave that nobody knows them, their dedication is bigger than so many others. So my point is not just one. Of course, a saint of the same caliber may be inspired to serve in a more outwardly way, so to say. And I'm not saying that's higher, lower. Each one is inspired in certain ways. So yeah, I personally don't feel that there is like only this one. I mean, when we are chanting the name of Krishna, ideally, it's not even so much telling Krishna again what he should give me or anything, but it's just calling directly his names, calling him. Of course, I need to call him, but I'm calling him. It's like a relationship also. No? I choose to call you, and I call you to offer myself to you in a certain way. So it's a, how do you say in English, statement of principles or something, like when you are setting out your principles.
Yes.
Setting your intentions. So again, it all depends so much from which place we are doing all that. So you can have people, just deeply inside the world of contemplation, some others very engaged in the world with other people. So many ways of finding God, serving Him. I mean,
yeah, sure.
So
even the calling thing, for example, you usually call someone to get the attention. You can't do this to God, literally speaking, right? So when you say calling, I just want to. I think it's very interesting that because we all pray, in different ways, and I'm not trying to put anything lower or higher. I'm just saying, even when we say I'm calling, who are we calling exactly? Are we calling ourselves to be more open, or are we actually think that we? Because you have
to ask each person separately.
And it's said in Prabhupada says this a lot. Like you have to. Srila Maharaj also says that you have to.
Like the child with the father.
No, get Krishna's attention. But again, it's a metaphor, right? How can it be possible? I mean,
how like implying that how could he not be aware of where we are or something?
Yeah, that's a very human way of seeing things, right? The person is doing his own stuff, and you need to, like, hey, I'm here. You need to, like.
Yeah, but even we could say, even if we could say he's omniscient, so he doesn't need to be attentive because he's already is. It doesn't mean that we don't have a part to play, because if not, if you fully play out the ideas of him being omniscient and omnipotent and omnipresent, that may paralyze us also, in the sense that I don't have anything to say, to do, because he already. And that's another layer, if you want to talk it in that term, which we will say Gaudiya Vaishnavas in particular, we'll start to talk about Krishna in the Leela, where he's still omniscient, but his omniscience goes to the background, and he becomes Muktata, in the words of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. There is Sarvajñata, there is omniscience, but he becomes bewildered by the strength of Leela, and he doesn't know things. And ultimately and again, it's inconceivable because he remains being omniscient, but generally his omniscience goes to the background, and his Muktata, he bewilders, and ultimately we are addressing that form of God, if you want to call it like that, no? Or the source of God, if you want to put it more specifically.
And this is my very last point. Sorry.
I'm not sure if it's the very last. Let's see.
Yeah, well, for now.
You never know.
But then, more of a practical question: if anyone spends like 5 hours in a row just simply meditating on the omniscience of Krishna, does this can be counted as a prayer in one sense? Like, is this a form of prayer? Because one devotee told me this is gyan. You're falling into gyan. I couldn't understand, because as a former, whatever, not former, but I grew up as a Christian, and I was very close to some monks, and they can spend a whole night just sitting and taking like the omniscience of God and just putting this in their mind, heart, everywhere, and just no words, no nothing else. Just, someone told me this is kind of gyanic process. What do you think about this? Because I feel this is my favorite kind of prayer in one sense. This is what is most spontaneous for me.
Again, the reply is it depends. I wouldn't label that as Gyan immediately, because Krishna himself in so many sections of Shastra speaks about his all-knowingness, his omniscience. So, I mean, if he speaks about that, I assume it's a nice thing that we can think about. Of course, depending on which stage one devotee is, that type of meditation will be more or less conducive to their inner life or inner bhajan, no? Because if a devotee is, to give maybe an extreme example, but a devotee is extremely engrossed into the lila and in the conception of Krishna as the lover of Sri Radha, and to bring too much his omniscience into the picture may disrupt the flow of that. But again, this is a very high advanced level. But on some other levels, to be aware of Krishna's omniscience, which is more of the Aishvarya side, so to say, instead of the Madhurya, it's important to lay a foundation of Aishvarya and understand that on top of that Aishvarya, there is Madhurya, there is intimacy. So in certain cases that may be favorable. Of course, I'm not saying that to like replacing all your other sadhana given by your guru, but it's not a unfavorable meditation, let's say, no? Or you're thinking about Krishna's omniscience, that goes against the laws of the Leela in Vrindavan. Nobody thinks that he's omniscient. Yeah, I agree, but yeah, we cannot just imitate that, because if you are to apply that fully, there's so many things that we are not doing, that we are doing that we won't be doing there. So we have to also be realistic and understand, yeah, the Madhurya of Braj expresses itself on the foundation of Aishvarya. That's a very important point made in Raga Varma Chandrika, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vrindavan is the place with the most Aishvarya, more than in Vaikuntha. But it's all in the background. So for us to enter into that kingdom, what Aishvarya is there, we need to go through the Aishvarya chapter to have clear how Krishna is God. So someday we forget that Krishna is God. That's how it works. That's how the Bhagavatam is building its whole case. It doesn't start with the 10th canto in Vrindavan. It keeps all the ideas, Krishna Stu, Bhagavan Soyam, how Krishna is the source of all forms of divinity and all these avatars and this Aishvarya, and eventually Vrindavan. But in context. No? And then after the 10th canto, 11th canto, lots of Gyan. But not Gyan as something bad. Uddhava is a devotee also. No? So 11th canto is to make sure that I understood the 10th canto correctly. No? Because 10th canto is mostly, not mostly, but half of it mostly Krishna Lila, Raja Lila, then comes Mathura, Dwarka, but Krishna Lila. 9th canto is to prepare ourselves for Krishna Lila, and then 2 more cantos at the end to make sure we didn't mess it all up and misunderstood everything. That shows, and lots of Aishvarya in between. And even when Sukadeva is narrating the Krishna Lila, he's invoking Aishvarya in between to remind us, or Parikshit, this is not ordinary. No? Rasa Lila, the 5 chapters of the Rasa Lila, first verse, first words of the Rasa Lila. The Haig is the most Madhurya-like section. First word is Bhagavan. Bhagavana Pitaratri. Bhagavan. To make clear, this is Bhagavan, the one who has all the opulences. This is performing this apparently womanizer-like misconduct. Bhagavan. Last verse of the Rasa Lila, just to put in context, Vikriditam Brajavadhubi Ridam Cha Vishnu. Says Rupadeva Goswami. He refers to Krishna as Vishnu. Of course, different acharyas say different things about why Vishnu, but one of them is making the connection. Vishnu is a portion of Krishna, but this is God. No, again, this is not just a boy, ordinary boy playing with girls, ordinary stuff. No, this is supremely sacred. So again, this Aishvarya is there is a place for the Aishvarya even to nourish the Madhurya.
Thank you.
So, and that's how the Brajavasis deal with that. Even if the Brajavasis become aware that Krishna is God, sometimes that sense of awareness comes, but that nourishes their Madhurya with Krishna. That's their psychology. Whatever you put on their way, it nourishes their intimacy with Krishna. Vishwanath Thakur gives the example of boiling milk. And he says it's like if you put one straw in a pot of boiling milk. So this boiling milk is the madhurya of the Brajavasis, the love of the Brajavasis, condensed, thickened, boiling. And the Aishwarya is like the straw. You throw it there, disappear. Still there, somewhere, but you cannot see it. Somehow, casually, it may come, but it doesn't affect the boiling. The love of the Brajavasis keeps boiling. As we gave the example of the Govardhan Lila. Krishna lifts Govardhan, that's pretty Aishvarik. 5-year-old boy lived in such a hill, you start to doubt, who is this? Is he my child? Is he my friend? Is he God? But Brajavasis only see new opportunities of service. Krishna must be tired, let's massage his arm, let's give something to eat. Let's help him with some sticks. He must be... in their psychology, their intimacy just increases. They cannot think he is God. It's not in their radar. No? So in the same way, somehow, okay, we are... Whenever we as Gaudiya Vaishnavas in our stage may connect with the Aishwarya side, okay, meditating Krishna's omniscience, omnipresence, it's not forbidden. But in the context of our ultimate goal also, no? It's good not to lose sight of who is our ultimate deity and try to connect with this omniscience and omnipresence in a way that adds charm to that ultimate prospect. Even when you read about Krishna Lila, you remind yourself, wow, this is full of omniscience, omnipresence, Aishwarya. And despite that, wow, it shows such simple and charming and beautiful, exactly because it has all this Aishwarya in the background. And it's pretty Aishwarya Vrindavan. Every tree is Kalpavriksha, all the soil is Chintamani, all the cows are Kamadhenu. That's Aishwarya, Aishwarya, Aishwarya. But more on top of that is nobody in Vrindavan is interested in asking anything. They will go to some Kalpavriksha just asking for fruits and flowers to offer to Krishna, basically. They don't even to ask. The trees will just offer that immediately. If it's an apple tree, but the Brajavasis need a mango, the apple tree will give mango. It is described. No? They will the fruit they need. It's facilitated. Okay. So we're almost 2 hours. Something else, Urugai? One last question, yeah.
At the beginning of your talk, you mentioned how it's not necessary ultimately to make a distinction between material and spiritual life. So I was wondering, like, there's some things that seem explicitly material, like, I don't know, sports or games, or even like a job, or maybe even a job that you hate that doesn't really seem connected to Krishna at all. So should an attempt be made to connect such things to spiritual life, or to consider such things spiritual? Seems complicated.
Not impossible. Of course, if you tell me, Maharaj, I'm working as a paid killer, I'll say, well, that may get in the way of your Bhakti project. No? But in general, I will say, as you mentioned, I agree that we may be having elements in our life that we don't feel, okay, this is the most ecstatic thing, this is super devotional. No. But again, be creative how I can create some link in which whatever thing I'm doing that doesn't seem too spiritual can end up being connected somehow to something spiritual. Like the example I gave of Prabhupada, offer your vodka to Krishna. So drinking vodka is not the highest sadhana, but put Krishna there and somehow, again, not as an excuse, but for someone in that situation, okay, let's connect that. Like I remember once I was talking with a friend in Argentina, he said, like we were talking about this, he said, well, I'm working. And I asked him, so why you're working? Like playing with him. I'm like, why to work? I say, well, to earn money. But why to earn money? And he was like, well, to maintain my family. And then, and why to maintain your family? He didn't expect that extra question. And he was like, oh, And then the answer came to him, I'm maintaining my family as a service to Krishna. And they are Vaishnavas, so I'm serving them. Okay, so there you establish a connection between your work, money, all things that sometimes we may say, that's material, I don't like my work, and Krishna, service to Vaishnavas and Krishna. So we have to be expert in linking whatever we are doing, so our conception is properly fixed, and that creates a certain result, because it's not so much what I do and I don't do, but how capable I am of connecting all that in a proper way. Of course, that's not the same. That's what Jiva Goswami calls Sangha Siddha Bhakti, which is activities which are not Bhakti inherently in themselves, but somehow you end up connecting them with Bhakti. But also, that's not to replace Swarup Siddha Bhakti, the activities which are inherently Bhakti. Actually, you need to engage in Swarup Siddha Bhakti so you can engage in Sangha Siddha Bhakti. If you don't have proper grounding in the main Bhakti angas, you won't be able to connect everything else with Bhakti, probably. So that will be my answer. And of course, if still one finds, yeah, man, but this thing is so disturbing, I cannot connect in any way, probably you may need to leave that thing. I'm telling in general, I'm not telling you what to do in your life. I'm just saying that sometimes in our life, something that may be Krishna inspiring us to engage in a more direct way to Bhakti, instead of something that is connected to something that is connected to something that is connected to Bhakti. Maybe Krishna wants something directly connected to Bhakti and inviting us to be creative. Yeah. And it's difficult, as you say, but again, not impossible. So that's a challenge there. No? Okay, so we have been 2 hours already, so I think we can stop here. You have one question?
I have a small question.
Okay, this question can be small, the answer, I don't know. Let's see.
That by praying to Krishna, can we actually invoke more of his mercy, or that just explains that how much mercy Krishna is already giving?
Yeah, she said that if by us praying to Krishna, we can invoke more of his mercy. He has already given mercy, but maybe by praying, more mercy can come. Of course, I can, as I said before, we can say, always there can be more mercy, because Krishna is an ocean of mercy, and he's giving mercy, and he can give more mercy. But as I said before, we have to be careful what we are doing with the mercy, because it's not so much about getting more mercy, but don't knowing what to do with that. No? It's like, it's not the example, but it's like on the material realm. Okay, give me more money, and I get $10 billion, but I don't know what to do with them, and I'm just putting them in one room, like 1 bag, 2 bags, 3 bags, 1 million. Give me more, and they're giving, but I don't have an idea what to do with that, and I'm putting. Eventually, all that will get ruined and disappear. So, again, it's not the example, but just to give you an idea. So, yeah, Krishna can always give more mercy, but also we have to become, trustworthy of that mercy. I mean, he will give mercy if he also knows more and more, if he knows that we will know what to do with that. No? Because if not, what's the purpose of? Because mercy means what? Mercy means grace. Mercy means something that I don't deserve, because what I deserve, that's coming. I don't need to request that to anyone, and mercy is already coming. I don't need to request that to anyone. In another sense, remember, Krishna is made of mercy, but we can pray and request a special further mercy. That there's place for that, but the point is, again, for what? Never as an excuse for me not to do my part, so to say. No, because sometimes we may ask for lots of mercy, so we can be lazy, so to say. We don't have to do very much. So mercy. Mm-hmm. Rupa Goswami speaks about those who get liberated by extreme mercy, called Kripa Siddhi, which means no sadhana involved, just mercy. And sadhana siddha, those who attain perfection by practice, which also includes mercy, because we practice by mercy. If there wouldn't be mercy, there wouldn't be sadhana, in my case at least. So again, we are not here trying to subscribe to the Kripa Siddhi club. No, Krishna, give me so much mercy so I attain perfection without practicing anything. No, because maybe we won't say it like that, but we'll be asking for so much mercy as a replacement to us doing our sadhana. And Krishna says, no, do your I gave you mercy, so now embrace that mercy and transform it in sadhana and reciprocate. Okay, we'll stop here. Sri Sachinandan Gaur Hari ki jai, Sri Harinam Prabhu ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premananda Haribo, Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Hari Haribo.